Are you thinking about booking a Greek island vacation, or maybe you've already booked it but are still having some lingering doubts or questions in your mind? Here are my 10 essential tips for making the most of your Greek island vacation. The first thing I want to talk about is flying between islands. And much to a lot of people's dismay, this is not always possible, particularly if you're flying between islands in the same island chain. For example, Santorini and Mykonos. You may see flights from Santorini to Mykonos, but they're usually with a layover in Athens, which sort of defeats the point, right? Because you're not getting there any faster than you would be if you were on the ferry. So if you're going to go to islands in the same island chain, you need to factor in that you're going to need to take the ferry from island to island. If you're going to go from Santorini to, say, Corfu, that's more likely that that's an option. But before you book anything, definitely check, make sure that what you want to do is physically possible within the Greek airline system. Number 2, lengths of ferry rides are long. Longer than I think a lot of people realize, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to go to Poros for 2 days, and then I'm going to go to Milos for 2 days, and then I'm going to go to Santorini for 2 days, and then I'm going to fly back to Athens, and I only have 7 days. Well, you don't really have a full 2 days on any of those islands because you're taking the ferry. Because you need to be at the ferry 30 minutes to an hour before. If you're taking a car, you need to be there about an hour before. And then that ferry ride can take anywhere from an hour to 5 or 6 hours, depending on how far the islands are. It can be even further if you're going from, say, Athens to Santorini on the slow ferry. That's an 8-hour ferry ride. Number 3, July and August are the busiest times of year here in Greece for holiday. That is because everyone is out of school almost all over the world, not everywhere, but most places are out of school at that time. So everybody is here with their kids for their summer holidays. In August, most Greeks are on vacation for about 2 weeks, and a lot of other European countries also give their holidays in August. So you're going to suddenly be inundated with other Europeans as well coming to Greece. If you can avoid coming in July and August, then I highly recommend it because it's going to be less crowded, it's going to be less expensive, and it'll be cooler because July and August are also the hottest times of the year here in Greece. Number 4 is something that I didn't even know about the first time that I came to Greece, and that is that you cannot drink the tap water on a Greek island. You need to be drinking bottled water. And you may be thinking, but Tiffany, it's Europe. They don't have this problem. And they don't. It's not something where if you drank the tap water or if you swallowed some while you're brushing your teeth, you're going to get violently ill. It's just that the water is desalinated, and so it can be a little bit harsh. It doesn't have a lot of minerals that you would normally get, and your stomach might be upset. So my advice to you is to, when you get to the Greek islands, you go to the supermarket, you buy the big 1-liter bottles, multiples of them, and then just put them in your hotel. Most of your hotel rooms should have at least a little mini fridge in it for you to keep that. And some hotels will even give you a couple of bottles to get started. You can brush your teeth with it. I make coffee with it. And you can also do cooking, not like where you're drinking it, but I boil like pasta water with it. So it's fine for some uses, but I wouldn't recommend like drinking a whole lot of it. I mean, if you get to your room and you're desperate, have some, but don't make a habit of it. Number 5, and this is a controversial one every time I mention it, is that you cannot flush toilet paper on a Greek island. And the reason is that most of the pipes on a Greek island are very small and very narrow, and so toilet paper just can't go down them. Don't worry, there's a trash can with a lid and a liner next to the toilet for this purpose. There was going to be a sign there saying that you can't do this. And I know there are Greek people watching this video and saying, but Tiffany, you can. Like, I do it all the time. That's great. Your house is probably made for that. But a lot of the places that people go to as tourists, they are not. Even in my building here in Athens, there's a sign in the elevator that says you can't. And some people are wondering why I'm mentioning this, because it's normal to them to not do it. But in the United States, where I'm from, and from where a lot of people, my viewers are, this is not normal. We flush our toilet paper. So I need to mention it so that hopefully I've saved someone's pipes on a Greek island. Number 6, sometimes ferries get canceled. And I know you're thinking, what do you mean, Tiffany? Ferries get canceled? But my holiday depends on this ferry going from X to Y. Yes, so sometimes there are strikes here, and that means that ferries just don't run for like 24 hours. Sometimes they go for 48, but that's really rare. I think I've seen that once the entire time I've been here. And I've actually only had a ferry get canceled for a strike for me personally one time. Yes, they happen all the time because I live here, but only one time has it personally affected me. What does that mean for you? You need to be watching the news while you're here. Not like obsessively, but just, checking. I would just maybe go check with the local ticket agent and just check with them. Hey, is everything good with my ferry? You'll know, word will spread. The other thing is sometimes the ferries get canceled because of wind. And that's actually probably more likely than the strike, because the strike will get announced like a couple of days in advance, whereas the wind, you can't always predict. They tried to do a really good job, but sometimes you get down there and they're like, we're gonna wait and see. The one time it's happened to me, they waited like 3 or 4 hours and they said we just kept delaying, and then they ended up canceling it. So something you wanna keep an eye on: the weather, the news. Your hotel should be able to tell you. This is another reason why I recommend staying in a hotel and not an Airbnb, is because they'll be a little bit more on top of it. So that brings me to my 7th thing related to the ferries. And that is to never book your ferry back to Athens or wherever it is that you're flying home from the same day that your flight is home. Because it would be terrible if your ferry was either delayed because of weather or there was a strike and it got canceled and then you missed your international flight home. So my recommendation is to go back the day before to wherever it is that you're flying from. My really great recommendation, I think, is to make sure that you're doing Athens at the end of your trip if you're planning on doing Athens, so that way you can go back to Athens 2 or 3 days before your flight, and then you don't have to worry about it at all because you're already back in Athens. Another thing that you could do is that you book your last island to be an island with an airport, because not all the islands have airports. But it does mean that everybody's ferry that got canceled is gonna now try to get on a flight. But that is an option if that's like, you're like, I'm not doing Athens and I refuse to go back. I'm not wasting a day in Athens to go home. So if you're gonna go to the Greek islands, that's when you need to start looking and seeing which Greek islands have airports. Number 8. I think when people come, sometimes they're very shocked about how cold the Mediterranean is. It's not the Caribbean. The Mediterranean is very deep and it takes most of the summer to get warm. The nicest time of the year to swim, in my opinion, is September and October. It's had all summer to get warm, and it is finally warm enough to really swim for long periods of time. Now, if you're from somewhere like Ireland where the sea is very chilly and you go swimming in it, then coming to the Mediterranean is going to feel fabulous. If you're someone like me, who's from Texas and has also lived in the Caribbean, this water is chilly. 9. Okay, we're back to ferries again. You need to look and see, when you've booked that ferry ticket, where your ferry is leaving from, because there are 3 ferry ports here in Athens. And technically none of them are in Athens, but that's a whole nother video for another time. So there are 3. There's Poros, which is the biggest, and it's the one that most people leave from. And it's about a 20-minute taxi ride from the center of Athens to Poros. It's where I leave from 99% of the time. There's Lavrio, which if you're going to Cape Sunion is just its neighbor. It's a very small port. It goes to Kea and then goes from there. But it's only about an hour from Athens city center. It's less from the airport. If you're in Athens and you've decided that you're going to Kea and you're like, how do I get there? There is a bus there is a KTEL bus that takes you there. It can be a little bit tricky to figure out. However, just as a test, the other day I emailed them and asked them where I get the bus in Athens to go to Lavrio. I cannot say the name, but there is a metro station that the bus leaves from. I will leave it down in the description box along with a link to the bus system that it runs on. So you can do that. You can also get a taxi. A taxi will take you to Lavrio. It will be expensive. I'm thinking it's anywhere from 40 to 50 euros, depending on maybe how many people are in the taxi. Like, you know, if you need a big taxi, then it might be more. I would suggest that if you're going to do Lavrio and you want to take a taxi, you book with welcome pickups. That's how I use to go to the airport. I will also leave a link to welcome pickups down in the description box below. Third port that I finally left from to go to Andros is Rafina. And it's even closer to the airport. And it's only about a 40-minute ride from Athens to Rafina. Maybe more in traffic, but if you're leaving for a super early ferry like I did to Andros, then like it took no time at all. Another place that you probably want to take a taxi from if you're coming directly from Athens, there is a bus, but I believe that you have to change somewhere, and you might need to change for Lavrio too. That's a thing that I would definitely email them about. And Rafina goes to Andros, Tinos, Mykonos, that sort of route. And I know some of the ferries there go to some of the northern Aegean islands as well. The other thing that I'm seeing more and more of is, Tiffany, I don't really want to get on a long ferry ride. What islands are close to Athens that aren't a long ferry ride? Well, there are lots. So I'm gonna just give you a bunch of them. I will also put them down in the description box because I know that the pronunciation of them in Greek is a little bit more difficult when you try to translate them to English Latin letters. Probably the most popular one is Aegina, and that is about an hour from Athens, and those ferries leave from Poros, so that makes it super easy. You can go to many of these for a day trip. Another one that's close next to that one is on the same ferry route usually is Agistri. Agistri has really beautiful beaches and is about an hour and 10 minutes from the Poros port. There is the island of Poros. The great thing about going to Poros is that if you don't want to take the ferry at all, you can take the bus to Galatas and then take a tiny ferry from Galatas to Poros. Then we have KTEL, but of course you have to get to Lavrio like I mentioned. But if you're up for an adventure and you don't mind leaving really early in the morning, you could definitely get down to Lavrio for that early ferry and then go to KTEL for probably, you might need more than a day in KTEL. I'm not sure about the ferry schedule, but it's close. It's only an hour ferry ride. There is also Hydra. It is also technically like the Saronics, so Aegina, Agistri. That island is great because there are no cars, so you can just walk around, but only only the little fast ferries go there. So if you tend to get seasick, it might be too much. I think it's about a 2-hour ferry ride. Slightly further, but kind of getting out of the realm of close, in my opinion, is Spetses, but some people still say that it's close. I haven't been there yet, but the ferry is about 3 hours. If you don't mind going to Rafina, then going to Andros is a really great option because it's a 2-hour ferry ride. On the slow ferry, it's a 2-hour ferry ride. So I think I checked, the fast ferry is like an hour and 10 minutes or something. So that's a really great option because it's not that long on the ferry. So hopefully those give you a few ideas of ones that the ferry ride is a little bit quicker. And again, then if you don't want to take the ferry, you need to pick islands that have airports. And I can't list all those because I don't know all of them, but to give you a few, there's Naxos, Poros, Syros, Santorini, Rhodes, Crete, Corfu. I could be here forever, but that's also another option. You can fly to some of the Greek islands. It may mean that you only get to see one Greek island because then you can't fly to another one. But if you really can't get on a boat, but you still want to go to the Greek islands, it's still possible. Don't let someone tell you that you have to get on a ferry to go to a Greek island. You don't have to. Now, this is just scratching the surface of things that I think are essential for knowing before you either book or plan that trip to a Greek island. So please let me know what your questions are down in the comments below, and I will either answer them in the comments, or if there are a few great ones, I might make a second video and we can talk some more in-depth tips for traveling to the Greek islands. Now, if you want a more step-by-step video on how to book a trip to the Greek islands, coming up on the screen now is a video about my process for booking step-by-step a Greek island hopping vacation. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.